So I wanted to show in a video some of how the time utility works. So to start with, you can click on the, you can double click on the time in the menu bar to open one of, actually any one utility. You get to configure what it is. So I have mine configured to open the time utility. So we're just going to open that. Okay, so here we are. So you can also see that the time utility has these 4 tabs. So clock, watch, which is a stopwatch, timer, and prefs. Now the first thing that I'll point out is that the reason the prefs tab is selected first is because, like all utilities, this utility remembers the last settings. So it remembers where you position the window, and it remembers what tab you had selected, and it remembers all the other settings automatically. So in prefs, you have a number of options for how to configure things related to time. So that little thing that I just said, where if you double click the time, you get to open one utility. These 2 options here actually let you choose which 2 sort of default options you have for when you double click the time. So if you say open today, and you save that, that will then open the today utility. So let's actually look at that. Now, before I do that, if I click save, I'm going to save these changes to disk immediately. But if I don't click save, I've just changed the preference for this booted up session of C64OS. So I've changed this to today, so I'm just going to close this utility here. And now I'm going to double click the clock. And instead of getting the time utility like I got before, I'm going to get the today utility. Okay, so we'll, now how do we get back to the time utility? Okay, no problem. We will go to the utilities menu and pick settings. And from settings, we have this date time. And actually here we see today and time. So we can configure either of these to be open by double clicking the time kind of as a shortcut. So I'll click time here to get back to the time utility. Okay, and so now instead of the today utility, I'll just flip this back to time. So we can also, we have these show the clock and blink seconds check marks. So if I say don't show the clock, boom, the clock disappears. So you can actually make the clock go away entirely. Now another kind of cool quick feature is that if you hold the Commodore key and you click on the clock, or where the clock would be, you can actually toggle the clock on and off. But we'll choose here that we want to say hide the clock, and if you save this, that would make it so that, say, the clock is always hidden at boot up, and then you can call it back using the little shortcut here like this, right? So we'll bring it back, and so we also have this blinking the seconds. So we have the little colon blinking. We can turn blinking the seconds off. Now it's just solid if that's distracting. And we can also switch between 12-hour time and 24-hour time. So there we are, 15:55 or 3:55 p.m. So now what we'll do is I'll hit save, and that just wrote these settings to disk, and the save button gets disabled because there's nothing different. So every time you make a change, the save button becomes enabled. So I can then say save that as 24-hour time. Save that as 12-hour time. Now next, I'll flip over to the clock tab. So technically, this shows you the current date and time, which is, you know, it's okay. If you hid this and you just wanted to see the current date and time, it's like, you know, you could pop this open to see the current date and time. But it also serves as the ability to set your current RTC driver. So You don't configure your RTC driver using this utility. The RTC driver is configured using a different system that is meant to set up all the drivers for all the various things. But you can click on these elements. So we can click on these guys here to cycle through. We can also click and hold, and it cycles through these months. We can click and hold on these to cycle through the dates. Here's kind of another cool little feature of this date picker is it handles the number of it handles leap years and the number of days in a month properly. So say February of 2025, that apparently only has 28 days. But if we go back to 2024, now all of a sudden 2024, there are 29 days in February because that must be a leap year. But if we flip ahead a year to 2025, it's like, boop, that just popped back down to 28 to keep the date a valid format. And we can also, adjust the time, and you can hold the Commodore key to rotate these backwards, and you can click on this to switch AM and PM. And then you hit set, and it'll serialize whatever you've just configured and send it to your RTC driver to set the time in the RTC. I haven't actually implemented set time in all of the RTC drivers yet, but that's I'm working on that. So the other kind of neat thing that I wanted to show just before I leave here is I'm going to go over to prefs, and when I flip this to 24-hour time, not only does it change this time here, but it also, you flip back over to the clock and you see it's also changed this time picker. Because this 24-hour time, 12-hour time setting is a global setting for the whole system, and things that display the time can pay attention to this setting and should pay attention to this setting. They don't necessarily, but they should. So that's kind of cool, right? Go back here, set this to 12-hour time, come back here, and now we've got this in 12-hour time. So next what I want to do is show the stopwatch and the timer. So we can flip back and forth here between the stopwatch and the timer. So we get this cool double high digit display. This is a TK timer class. We have a reset button and a start button. So when we click on the start button, the stopwatch simply starts counting up, and the start button becomes a pause, so we can pause that. And if we hit reset, even if it's running or paused, we can hit reset, and that will send it back to 0 and stop it counting. What I think is kind of cool is that while this is counting, of course, everything else is live. So we can move this around while it's counting. You can move it off the screen, and it's no problem. It's still counting. And, you can shade this window, and it's still counting. You can flip over to another tab, and you can flip back, and it's still counting. You can pop open menus, and it's counting. And you can you can drag selections back here, and move these things around. It's still counting. So although C64OS is not multitasking, you can have these sort of timer-based events that are updating other things simultaneously while you're working in things in the background. So I'll just leave that counting. Why not? And I'll flip over here to the timer. Tab. So this uses the same class. This class here and this class here are both the TK timer class, but they can be put into two modes. It can be put into either watch mode, which is sort of count up forever until the maximum number, or timer mode, which is you get to set what you want the base value to be, and then it counts down, and when it hits 0, it calls a callback. So when the TK timer is in timer mode, it can be either adjustable or not adjustable. Adjustable means that it is not counting, and its currently displayed value is the base value that you have configured it for. Okay? So when you hit reset, it'll pause it and it'll go back to its base value and it'll put it into adjustable mode. So here, because you see these two tones, like top and bottom, you can click to adjust the settings, just like so. So we'll set this to say 10 seconds, and as soon as we start to count down, this flips into a solid tone because we can't click on it to adjust it. Okay, so when it counts down to 0, okay, so the callback is currently configured just to do a standard system alert, so the border blinked, and it automatically reset, and it goes back into sort of configuration mode, or adjustable mode. So we can set this, say, to 5. Now, if I pause that, now the reason why this is not adjustable is because it's not currently at the value that is the base value. But if I hit reset, it goes back to adjustable and its base value. Similarly, let's just flick this to, say, 23:59:10. We can see that this is still counting. And we come back here, and we see that this is going to roll over. So that's kind of cool. This is still counting. So now, if we close this, and we double-click here again to open it back up, it has preserved the time that we were at, and it immediately resumes counting. Now, for the moment, it actually stopped counting while it was in the background, but I'm working on that. I'll get it so that it maintains some sort of counting while the utility is closed, some sort of stay resident thing. But for now, it saves where it was, and if it was counting, it just immediately returns to counting. Yeah, so that is pretty much the whole thing, but it's pretty cool. The only other thing I think that I would like to get, besides it maintaining its count while it's in the background, is rather than it just firing an alert like this, rather than just doing the standard system alert, I'd like to have some option to play a song or something on the SID, or maybe keep the border alerted so that if you look away for a second and you look back, you haven't missed it. Yeah, but pretty cool. Thanks for watching.